Additionally, as America had geographically expanded, it became increasingly difficult to move goods by roads, especially across mountains, uh, large geographic areas that made things slow and inefficient for transporting goods, especially if you're growing crops out in the Southwest or whatnot. So it became necessary for there to be other means of transportation that America should explore. Now, if you're in New York City, you're surrounded by several major waterways, one of which, of course, is an outlet to the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. But you also have the East River, you also have the Hudson River. So basically, Manhattan is surrounded by water on all sides, which is great. The Hudson River extends all the way up into upstate New York. Okay. What if you want to transport goods from New York City to Chicago, for example? A couple different things. First of all, the only way that New York and Chicago are interconnected would be by land. Okay, so you would have to transport things over by land, which would be tedious and highly inefficient, nonetheless, also long. You could maybe try and do other things, send stuff up to the St. Louis River and get up to the Great Lakes, but that would also be inefficient as well. Huh. Unless you try something else, unless you try a project where you essentially dig a 40-foot wide canal trench, if you will. You could build a canal from the Hudson River and extend it across upstate New York all the way to Lake Erie. And Lake Erie being connected to other Great Lakes, Lake Huron, Lake Ontario, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan. Huh. Now you will be able to transport goods from New York City up the Hudson River, across the Erie Canal theory, and then navigate through the Great Lakes to get to Chicago. Huh. So the idea of there being a human-made waterway that would connect major bodies of water outside of natural lakes and rivers that could be wide enough for commercial vessels was now largely explored in this era. We know that steamships have been around for a while. They've navigated the Mississippi River, the Ohio River Valley, and places like that for several decades by this point. There wasn't really a big emphasis on canals until the 1830s and 40s. So, because of the advent of the Canal Age, if you will, now all of a sudden you no longer need to rely on these turnpikes that could take weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's cost ineffective to send across a vast amount of area in the United States, from New York to the Northwest or anything else along those lines. So the Erie Canal was an ambitious construction project that was funded by the federal government to link the Hudson River in New York to Lake Erie rather, that would be able to help New York City move goods to and from places elsewhere in the country, i.e., the Midwest, more specifically Chicago, that would give it access to other Western markets. And in doing so, this Erie Canal not only made it more efficient, it also basically unofficially ruined New England's agricultural community. New England itself is not necessarily the best for agriculture in the first place. From a geographic standpoint, you have a lot of rocky outcrop that makes it difficult for large scale agriculture. What agriculture did exist in New England effectively went away because of the Erie Canal. New York could now get its goods directly from farms out west, especially around Illinois and places like that. Didn't have to rely on Massachusetts. So, because of this, New York was now at a geographic advantage over other eastern cities. Boston, Philadelphia, Baltimore, they all relied on commercial seafare. They didn't necessarily have access to large rivers that could be interconnected to Great Lakes, therefore interconnected with the West. So New York really built in a distinct economic advantage because it did have seafaring seaports and it also had access to the Great Lakes via the Erie Canal. Massive scoring point for New York, also helps grow the West. Furthermore, because now you also have canals, people don't have to necessarily live out east anymore. It makes settlement of the West easier because you no longer have to go horse and buggy along a turnpike anymore to get over mountains. Now you could take a canal to the Great Lakes, to Chicago, elsewhere throughout the Midwest, and it makes settlement of the West, especially for white settlers, that much easier. So you're shipping goods, you're shipping people, and you're growing economic expansion for New York City. All those things in the Canal Age.